Hey, check this out, boys and girls. So I've been using this little tool, which is kind of like a little chamfer tool, or basically a type of kind of like, it works the way that like a router would work. And so I've been using these to chamfer these sections of pipe. There's a little bearing on there, which is basically barely hanging on. It's not going to focus. Fuck! No, it's not going to focus. Anyway, there's little carbide inserts, like those little triangle-shaped carbide inserts, riding around in there, and what they'll do is make a nice little chamfer. Yeah, so that makes a nice little, not as good as the factory one, but makes a nice little chamfer there. So you can put a couple pieces together. Let's see if I can hold this in my pit. You can get a nice little weld bead in there. And yeah, cool. Okay, check it out. So we got our wastegate port on wastegate tube, and so I'll plan to reaching around for stuff. I'm gonna plan to do something like that. So we'll see how well that fits. I mean, it's gonna be tight, but tight against the turbine housing, but it kind of needs to be. So I'm gonna fit that up in the car and see how that looks, and it's not too bad, as you can see, and it's pretty fucking well coped, I would say. If that's, I mean, I think that you just call that coping, fitted together there. I'm pretty pleased with that. And the way I did that, check this out. Actually, on the bottom side, it's not so good, but damn, that is a handsome cope job. What I did was, if you've ever seen one of these, you can't see it now because it's in my other hand. Let me get it sort of ready. Is a contour gauge. So like, this doesn't make it easy, I would say, but it makes it easier. So you can kind of just do this kind of thing, and then you can, so you have that exact contour of that sort of given profile, however that was. So I mean, it doesn't, I mean, you're stuck on right, this is only going to work sort of linearly, but it gives you a clue, you know what I mean? You can kind of, you know, push it onto a contour and then sort of lay it, you know, eyeball it over and then sort of pen over it, or sort of mark over it by just your eye line, and that's helpful. It's not foolproof, but it gives you a little bit more insight than just winging it, without any tools. So yeah, contour gauge, you rarely need them, but when they can be useful, man, they can be useful. Alright, so this is what it looks like set up in the car. So it does fit. I'm using so this is actually a different wastegate than from the one I had previously. It's the sort of diaphragm housing is a little bit smaller, and that's giving me a little bit more clearance. I don't know. I always try, in whatever I'm doing, I usually, or at least in this case, I try to prepare for future case and future eventualities. So I'm not sure how this sort of form factor compares to, say, a tile wastegate, but I mean, it fits. it should clear the hood no problem. And the only worry is, yeah, I don't know that it's gonna give enough clearance to the strut tower bar. I mean, so this thing sits down probably another ½ an inch or so lower down, so I don't know that that's gonna clear. And furthermore, keep in mind, all right, this engine is on sort of flexible mounting, so it's moving around, and that's why I was so concerned about clearance, particularly with the firewall. Is that engine's going to move around, and you know, how far is it going to move? Am I going to run into any clearance issues as a result of that? But I mean, I could either, you know, 86 the strut tower bar, or kind of cut it and modify it so that it makes room, because I mean, if you've got a better idea, I'd be sure glad to hear it, because I don't see another way to mount that wastegate. I don't see it. I mean, apart from going with an integral wastegate in a turbine housing, but then I'm getting I'm kind of set up for a GT35, and I kind of want the GT35 form factor, because I'm planning on being able to make a bunch of power. Yeah. And as far as, so I know what you might be thinking. You might be thinking, John, what the fuck are you going to do with the outlet of that wastegate? I mean, I'm looking at the hood. I'm looking at the hood, and I'm looking at the wastegate, and I'm thinking, yeah. I'm usually reluctant to do something like that, but at the same time, you know, the inner juvenile in me is looking for an opportunity to well, cut a hole in the hood and send the exhaust out there. I'll just put like one of those little, I'll fab up one of those a little piece of sheet metal as a flapper to keep rain and elements out of there. But I think that'd be cool, and then you can just sort of watch the wastegate dump out of the hood. I'm pretty sure that's California compliant. Almost no doubt. That's gonna be fine. Okay, so so far so good. I think I'm at this point, you know, ready to basically weld this sucker up. I'm gonna check a few other things and make sure I haven't missed anything, but I think we're pretty much ready to go. It's not looking too shabby. Let's talk for a second about the setup I'm working with here. So we'll start with the torch. So this is it's actually a knockoff from I think a number 9. Yeah, WP-9, so that's a flex head. I'm running, I want to say lanthanated, not really sure, I think maybe 330 seconds. Gas lens in a glass cup. I think that's going to be something like a number 10 glass cup. Probably I should be using a bigger cup than that for stainless, but you know, whatever. I mean, basically with a bigger cup, you're going to get more coverage, and especially as you're moving through a bead, which my beads are super short because I'm a noob. But apart from the fact that you're getting more coverage in general, as you're moving across the bead, and the bead trail that you've left behind is still hot and high temperature, it has a likelihood to react with the oxygen in the atmosphere as you move the torch away. So if you have a bigger torch cup, it's gonna be able to cover that trail area more adequately with shielding gas as your tungsten has moved away from it. But I mean, this is still a fairly large cup, and I'm just pumping a lot of gas, probably I don't even know, 15, 20, probably 20 cubic feet per hour. Actually, don't hold me to that, I'm not really sure. But more gas than I would normally use to try and account for the smaller cup. As you can see, so I have the ends capped off or sort of half blocked with aluminum foil. I was using socks, if you saw in the earlier time lapse, because I didn't have aluminum foil, so I was just doing the sort of bits away from the ends for sake of preventing the socks from catching fire. But so back purging with argon. I have two bottles set up. I mean, you can get one of these regulators that has two outputs, so you can use you can supply the torch, and you can supply the purge with the same bottle. For me, it's just out of convenience. I happen to have two bottles, so I'm just using two regulators. You really need to be back purging with stainless. You could really you should back purge with any kind of whether you're doing mild steel or even mild steel or aluminum, but it makes that much more of a difference with stainless. Stainless really doesn't like, and you can see these welds are not, I mean, there's a lot of basically sort of bad metallurgy with these welds. Ideally, so there's a fair bit of contamination, fair bit of oxidation, and probably a lot of chromium carbide formed in there as well, as a result of being too hot for too long and me not moving fast enough. But I think there's enough mass in these pipes where it sucks a lot of the heat away pretty quickly. So I think I'm getting away with it. It's not a perfect result, not by a long shot, but I think I'm getting away with it well enough to where we're not going to have any functional issues. But we'll find out. What else? My time-lapse camera, I mean, it's looking back at, especially running the beads, that's kind of cool to watch. How much of a fucking hack I am. And the machine, it's a prime weld, pretty inexpensive. But for a home gamer like me, that's like perfect. And I'm just running 120 volts. Yeah, it's a really good machine. And as you can see, it's got lots of like knobs and buttons and stuff, so that's useful. What's actually useful, that I think it's that bottom row. I can't see really well, but that bottom row lets you do pulse, and pulse is kind of convenient because you can have a timed, I guess I would say, intensity of the torch. And so if you want to make a bead look real nice after you've welded it, you can kind of go over it and pulse it and get that sort of stacked coin look, shiny stacked coin look. If you're real good, you can use the pulse as you're running filler. For filler, I'm just using 1/16 308L. Whoops. Pedal, I don't remember which pedal that is, but it's really crucially important, and most welders are not going to come with a good pedal that's going to allow you to control it, control the intensity really accurately. I don't know why. In theory, it's just a variable controller that you can just actuate with your foot, but that one, I tried the one that this came with, which is the same shitty pedal that most welders come with, most TIGs come with. They all come with that shitty little pedal, and I thought it was just me because it was just shit. And then I got that pedal, and to be fair, there is a great deal of shit that is just me, but it's not the result of the pedal. The pedal helps a lot. Yeah. So. Oh yeah, and what is it? The hose. It's called like Superflex or something. You have to have one of these hoses if you're doing any kind of TIG work. This will change your fucking life. Whatever it is. What is it? Worldwide Industries, or I can't remember what they call it. CK Worldwide. I'll correct that in annotation if I'm wrong. It's basically the biggest name, at least in TIG, in the world. But yeah, that hose is a must. I think that's it. Cool. Well, here we are, a finished collector. Well, sort of finished, half finished. Yeah, not desperately pleased with my performance. I mean, yeah, I mean it's welded. It's welded. I kind of tried. Originally, the sort of crotch of this wasn't welded. They just welded on the inside, but not in the crotch on the outside. And I started to do that, and it was just proven to be pretty challenging. And yeah, that doesn't. It should be okay, but it's just not looking great. Yeah, that's probably not focused for you, but whatever. Take my word for it. Yeah, it should be sealed. It should be fine. Structurally, it should be fine, I think. And we got there's a little bit of sugaring in there. I did back purge. But, you know, whatever. I'm not super stoked about it, but it should be okay. And now you can see. So I sort of marked the outline of this guy. This is going to be a pain in the ass also. Mark the outline, and then I made like an inner sort of perimeter where I'm going to cut. So I'll just basically put a big step bit in there and drill a hole, and then hog it out with a carbide burr. And weld this guy on there. Getting in that area is gonna fucking suck. But I don't know. I don't have a lot of experience, so what I basically do is just like stick the tungsten way the fuck out there and turn the gas way up. I mean, that's how you gotta do it, and I don't really like that, but we'll see how it works. Okay, here it is. Pretty much finished. I just gotta put on the wastegate flange, which I'm waiting because I'm just want to make super extra double sure that this is the one that I want, that it's the right size and stuff. Yeah, man, this is a fucking pain in the ass. I mean, this was tough. This was oh. And she's got some gravity to her. Yeah, I mean, I'll give you some more light here. Yeah. That's probably gonna flicker in the camera, but whatever. Yeah, I'm not real. It's. I've had projects in the past where I'm like, although not very many, where I'm like, man, that's awesome. I'm so proud of that. This one isn't really quite one of those projects. I mean, I think it's gonna be okay. But yeah, I mean, the quality of some of these joints here, especially when I had to get in there, and it was more difficult to get into some of these places than I expected that it was. I mean, I knew that it was going to be tough, and it was even tougher than I had thought. So like that guy in the back there, I mean, that got pretty shitty. And but some of them are quite nice and satisfactory, and the ones that are easy, right? You know, you just do move right along and it's fine. But yeah, not the best, but I think it should work. Like, look at this one. This one's like, oh yeah, that's totally acceptable. Is it like world class? No, but it's not bad. Anyway, and up in here, this guy stayed fairly flat. If you can see from the time lapse, I used these clamps and clamped to this 1/2 inch piece of plate steel, and that was for for sort of two main reasons. The primary reason was to try and keep this guy flat no matter what. And so just clamp the shit out of it, clamp it tight against something else that's flat. It also was to try and suck away some of the heat, although, you know, I wasn't so much concerned about keeping the part cool, keeping the part cool for sake of the stainlessness of it, because I mean, if you thought this was going to be like food grade stainless and there were just going to be beautiful rainbow welds or even better than that, I gave up on that a long time ago. So I mean, these welds are highly contaminated. A lot of oxidation, a lot of chromium carbide. But I mean, if it can still retain much or most of its corrosion resistant properties, you know, that's good enough for me. Have we done that? Yeah, I'm not so sure, but I mean, and the inside of here, this is probably most unpleasant. So I'll come in here with a burr, one of those are great, those little carbide burrs I put at the end of I put them on, what do you call them? Just die grinders, like an air powered die grinder, and they just tear shit up. And if you get even some of the low quality ones, like the made in China ones, like they still keep going for a long time, and they just tear shit up for fucking ages. I love it. Make sure you wear eye protection, because those things just fling sharp shards of fucking whatever you're digging into, and it'll jack up your fucking eye hole. Anyway, so I'll get in here and sort of smooth these out. I can remove a lot of this material that's these tubing, these pieces of tubing, and smooth them out. But I mean, there's a limit to how much is going to be improved here. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll add some weld bead in there to sort of improve the transition. It's helpful if that can be a smooth transition for the exhaust gases coming out of the engine. And so that's why I would smooth it. But also it's like maybe not super critical if it's super duper slick, because right, the cross-sectional area of these ports, when you compare it to the channel that they got to come out of inside the engine, it is significantly greater. So although you want to make the smoothest transition in the least amount of resistance you can, the least amount of resistance to flow as you can, you know, how much are you really helping by smoothing these out? Now you'll see guys that'll polish those ports like I just showed you, polish them super slick, but you got really high velocity air going through a relatively small surface area, or small cross-sectional area, whereas your cross-sectional area here is significantly bigger. That what I just said there, that may all just be bullshit. Anyway, so I'll get that flange on and do a couple other checks and stuff. I was thinking about leak testing it, but then again, no. Yeah, so we'll before too long we'll fit it up in the car, and then I gotta sort out the rest of the exhaust plumbing, which is now not gonna fit. But yeah, that's what makes it fun. Cool.